In the book of Mark, in chapter 5, we have a very unique story. It's not at the very beginning of Jesus' ministry. He's already kind of started a movement that's been going. But this story is unique in that it contains something that is never expressed anywhere else. Jesus and his disciples leave one part of the Sea of Galilee, and they cross over and they come to a place where they meet a very special man. Let's read it here together. It says, they went across the lake to the region of Garyville. That's the American version. When Jesus got out of the boat, a man with an impure spirit came from the tombs to meet him. This man lived in the tombs, and no one could bind him anymore, not even with a chain. For when he had often been chained hand and foot, he tore the chains apart and broke the irons on his feet. No one was strong enough to subdue him. Night and day he wandered among the tombs and the hills, howling and cutting himself with sharp stones. A very dramatic description of a man in a lot of trouble. Very disturbed individual here that doesn't have any kind of match in the rest of Jesus' ministry. And what we see here is somebody that is just kind of so overcome, so much in trouble. He lives among the dead. He wanders in the tombs. They've tried to help him. They've tried to restrain him from his self-destructiveness. And whatever is in him is so powerful. He breaks the chains. He just knocks the irons off his feet. And you're left with this devastating line there of no one was strong enough to subdue him. There's kind of this despair here, right? The rest of the people have kind of gone, we give up. This is probably somebody's boy in this town. And he has extended family and friends, and they've all tried to help, and they've all tried to understand, and they come to this place where they're just like, I don't know what to do with him. He just is what he is. And he's going to live among the dead, and we have to listen to his howling and his self-destructiveness. Is an unmatched description of such despair of being able to deal with something. Our culture, our society, American society is in trouble in lots of ways, but in one way in particular. A Pandora's box was broke open wide in the 60s and 70s. And foolishly, a ginormous lie was spread across our nation of going, you know what? Drugs are going to set you free. Drugs are going to take us to a new place. Drugs are going to be something that helps us to deal and really get over all of our petty differences. It's going to usher in a new age. Well, in part, they were right. It is an age of absolute devastation and destruction. Millions and upon millions of lives have been destroyed by the drug culture in our country. All the way back to then, but even more so now. Here's a chart here. This is only going back to 1999, so this is really only 21st century. This doesn't include the first 30, 40 years of last century. And at that time, at the turn of the century, we were under 20,000 people. That's not too bad. That's still a lot of folks each year dying from overdoses. We kind of hover somewhere between 30 and 40,000 people die each year in car accidents. It's been kind of steady for the last 20, 30, 40 years or so of that many. And you know what? We all put up with that because none of us are going to give up our cars. Do you understand that? We just kind of go, yeah, that's an acceptable loss. It's sad. We hope we want to keep that to a minimum. But our society runs on cars. It's a necessary evil. We'll tolerate the loss because we need cars. This type of a loss is totally unnecessary. We were under 20,000 just a little over 20 years ago, 25 years ago. This chart only goes to 2022, and we are peaking at almost 108,000 overdose deaths. Almost triple of what our car accidents are. Outpacing just about every other major issue in our society of what is killing people aside from old age. And understand that if we talk about automobile deaths, that's kind of spread across the whole spectrum of ages. When we talk about overdose deaths, you don't get 80-year-olds that are dying from overdoses. This is pretty much a 50 and under, and really probably the majority of these are 40 and under deaths. People that were of just fine health, but got involved into the addiction of drugs, and it absolutely destroyed their lives. And you've heard this. This isn't new to you. You've seen it on the news. This has to do with the opioid epidemic, the narcotics, all the things that are in our society now. We've had a lot of addictive things throughout our history, but the drugs that are really kind of coming to the top between heroin and cocaine, they've been around for a little while, but now we've got the opioids that kind of came on in the late 90s. Those are the painkillers that the medical field was actually pushing. That's a whole other story I don't have time to kind of get into. Pushing these really powerful drug painkillers. And then in recent years, we've had fentanyl, which is just kind of a synthetic or a synthetic form of heroin. That's not quite the right word. It's not synthetic. Anyways, it's a derivative of it. And it is horrendous because what they're doing is they're mixing the fentanyl in with a whole bunch of other stuff, and you easily overdose. This is why we are going exponentially up in the number of deaths. It's not just because it's being spiked with fentanyl, it's the very nature of these drugs. We've had addiction all throughout our history. That's not new. People are kind of going to do this. But these drugs in particular are so powerful, are of such an order that it isn't a slope of going, boy, you go a little ways, you go a little further, and you go a little further, you're in a danger. It really is a drop-off. It is at one moment you are safe, and another moment you are at 100 miles an hour headed for the ground because of their effect on our bodies, on the brains of these people, especially as we talk about the younger you are, and the teenagers, their brains are still forming, and this stuff wreaks havoc. Not just in the moment, not just for a day or a week, it wrecks it for a lifetime, and as we can see, it can bring that lifetime to a very stunted end. This isn't a great topic, it's not a fun topic, but we are doing a special Sunday here about Celebrate Recovery, talking about this. This is a very, just an initial step here. I'm way out over my skis. I don't know a lot about this. I've been at school for the last few weeks as I'm just trying to kind of catch up to speed on some of this stuff. And we're not doing this because it's just a topic or it's in the news. Certainly it's something that our society is facing, but it's hard to relate to this when we just talk about numbers because there aren't any faces, there aren't any people that we know. But that's not true. We're talking about this because it's right here, right now. It's in our church. We've got families that are facing this. And so today is really, I don't have solutions. We're not starting anything. This is just kind of going, we need to start talking about this. This is a big deal. It has terrible consequences. This is Vicki Henry. She's a member of our church, and her son Elliot. Elliot is an addict. He has battled it for a long time since he was a teenager. He's into his 20s at this point. Vicki has put up billboards, if you've been driving around, you've seen them, trying to highlight this because she lost her son to this. And so part of her grief and process is to go, how am I bringing purpose out of this pain? And so here's a couple of the billboards you'll see around our towns of going, not just remembering Elliot, certainly she wants that, but to go, there's a problem here in and among us. And we need to start recognizing it. We got to break down some of this stuff and recognize how absolutely dangerous this stuff is. Addiction by itself is bad. This stuff is just so deadly because of that immediate drop off. So she's not here today because this is actually a time when they're talking about overdose deaths in our county. So she's away, but I sat down with her this week to share some of her story. So take a look.
It's called Pain into Purpose. I'm learning
No,
to
that's
live
not
without
it.
my child.
The interview.
Whose leg has been amputated.
So tell us about Elliot. There you go.
Okay, Elliot was just a near average boy. I mean, he liked boy things. He loved to, when he was younger, he started out with bikes, and then he went to go-karts, and then four-wheelers, and then motorcycles, and then cars. So he was just your boy, but he did love riding four-wheelers, and then he got side-by-sides, and he wrestled. So he wrestled for Phillipsburg, Osceola from the time he was in about 4th or 5th grade till high school. So he liked sports. He had a lot of girlfriends, and one of his girlfriends told me that Elliot was a self-professed mama's boy, and he didn't care who knew it. He was.
So how did Elliot's battle with addiction begin?
At first, I didn't know. He could hide it very well, and I don't think in the beginning he really knew what happened. We kind of narrowed it down to the when he wrestled, he hurt his shoulder somehow, just because in the 90s these opioid pills were around and so easy to get from parents and grandparents' medicine cabinets. A friend gave him something, said, hey, if your shoulder's bothering you and you still want to wrestle, here's some pills, take these pills. And I don't think he knew, and I don't think a lot of people knew that once you started taking them, they were going to be very addictive. Until one day, he didn't take anything for a while, and he got very sick. But he said he thought I should take him to the ER, that he was really sick, had body aches and cramps, and he had a really bad flu maybe. So I did. I took him to the ER, and when I got there, the doctor pulled me aside and said, your son's having withdrawal symptoms, and you really need to take him to a rehab. So, at that point, I was shocked. I didn't have any knowledge about addiction or pills, or, I thought, okay, I'll do this, and then he'll be better.
So what was that battle like for him?
He seemed, like I said, he seemed to be able to hide it. I don't know if he was getting things and just taking it because, later on, when he really got sick, he would say, if you're an addict, you don't do bad things unless you're not taking your drugs. So when they would get sick, when they didn't have anything, is when they would, try to get money or take money from their parents. Or he never really got that way simply because he always worked. When I initially took him to that rehab the first time, they told me to. It took a while to get a bed. The facilities are full. It's hard to get a bed. But they got him in within a couple days, and he was sick all those days. They got him in, and he went through the program great, 30 days, he was, I would even say, oh, that's my old Elliot there, he was himself. I thought, oh, he's better now. He's, detoxed, and the stuff's out of his system, he's good to go. And again, I didn't know it again. And then, so when he came to me the time and said he was still dealing with this, he went to a doctor to get what they call Suboxone, a prescription that he took, and he took it every day for 8 or 9 years, and he was good with that. He's a normal person. He got up, he went to and went to work every day, and he just seemed okay. When he had the real problem was when COVID hit, and he lost his job, and he just fell really hard. He had a bad relapse, and from what I understand now, all of recovery includes relapses. So he relapsed and just couldn't come back from it. He lost his job, and he would say that people are always going to think of me like an addict. They're never going to think I'm a good person again. So he wasn't working. He was getting street drugs really hard, and that's when I didn't see him. He would go off, and I wouldn't know where he was, and I'd call him, and he wouldn't answer. He wouldn't call back, and then he got in trouble. And once they get in the criminal justice system, it just seems, it bothered him, because he didn't want people to think of him like that, I guess. I mean, that's when it got worse, and he didn't come back from it at that point.
What was, as he battled through that, you have your own battle as mom. Tell us a little bit about that battle.
What the problem with addiction is that stigma. People don't want to talk about it. Like if your child has cancer or some other disease, they'll rally around those people and have walks and raise money. And but if you have a child that's in addiction, nobody wants to talk about that. It's like, oh, they're a bad person. So you have your own struggle with, like, you don't want to come out and tell people. So you try to hide it maybe, or but at the same time, you want your child to get better.
I know you have lots to say and you could share about your experience, but what's one key message that you would want people to know from your and Elliot's experience?
You need to understand that it can happen to anybody. A lot of people think, that's, my child's not like that. They're never going to do that, but it could come, not just because they make some bad choice, but, it could come from an injury, or they get a prescription, or someone could just have some depression, so that you have to think that, it could happen to anybody. And the other thing is that I wish I would have known more about it back then, and that's what people need to do now. Try to learn more about it, because it's not something that just happens to some bad person, it can happen to anybody.
Ellie attended here for several months a couple years ago, and I remember him well. He's a really nice guy. He was battling pretty hard then, and he'd meet with me and meet with Matt, just pour out his heart and cry and sob and go, man, I want to make this right. I want to get rid of this life. I want to get back on track. I don't want this to be part of my life. And he was so excited about that and committed to it, and just broken as a person. He would relapse again after that, kind of disappear and live that chaotic life, but got back on track again down in Pittsburgh, got some treatment, and was in a group home with some of my other guys that were battling this, and just a really good group of guys around him. Got a construction job through that. They really liked him. He was a good worker. Found a great church that he was a part of, and on Mother's Day in 2023, Vicki was able to go down. That was the last time she saw him. They attended church on Mother's Day together. He talked about he was going to be baptized and just kind of getting life on track and ready to put this stuff behind him. Then 2 weeks later, he overdosed. 29 years old. There's something that we need to understand, that this is more than just going, they just need to want it badly enough. Elliot wanted it badly enough. But that's the nature and perniciousness of these drugs, that they are so destructive over long periods of time. And so this is going to be part of our just kind of understanding this, is that I want to give you 4 snapshots of experience of addictions. This is not from the addict's perspective. This is really more from the family's experience here. So 4 quick snapshots. 1, when you have an addict in your family, a child, even an adult child, they have been taken hostage. They are no longer here. They are gone. The one that you knew has been taken away. And you'll see these stories of going, I remember my son, my daughter, and how sweet they were and how close they were. He was a mama's boy, and now he's gone, and there's this gigantic gap. This is a picture from the Iran hostage situation, if you're old enough to remember that, back in 1980. Do you remember how long that went on for? 444 days, over 1 year. We were the greatest nation on the planet at that time, unchallenged. And we had a whole group of Americans taken hostage to our shame and humiliation, and there wasn't anything we could do about it. I remember those days and going, how long will this last? Are they going to come home this month? Are they going to come home at all? How are they being treated? You are left with this just ache and unknowingness. When you have an addict in your family, you just don't know what the end is. They have been taken away. This is a picture of distance. What's deeply ironic about this is there's also a picture of this very much, you are in this battle with them. You are tied to this self-destructive person. And so you go through all the emotional turmoil of going, okay, I'm going to love them, I'm going to support them, I'm going to hang in there with them, while they are speeding to the ground faster and faster. So while this is a picture of 2 people having fun, you got to understand they've just jumped out of an airplane and death is waiting for them. And there's a plan for them, but you have no plan. You are tied to someone you cannot control, to someone you cannot fix. And so part of this is that, you're going to go with the ups and downs with them. You're going to feel and experience of that. But the gut-wrenching part of this experience is that there is going to come a time at which you go, where do I set the boundaries? If they go all the way to the ground, if they crash and burn, do I go with them? Do I take the family down with them? Where do I go? I release you. Something that most of us could not even ever imagine. The stakes are so high. You are distant and out of control, as well as so tied closely together. And ultimately, there's this feeling of powerlessness, of going, you know what you want to do. Every instinct, every fatherly instinct, motherly instinct is going, man, I am going to fight for my kid. We're going to fix this, because that's what we do as Americans, right? We figure it out and we're going to fix it. We do X, Y, and Z, and it will be all better. And it's just not that type of a journey. It's not that simple of a fix, one, but especially as you start to deal with an adult child, you don't get to make all the choices. You can push as hard as you want to, and you can't make them do certain things. There will be good times, there will be relapses, there will be insanity. And you have to just go for the ride. And so the final snapshot is this as a disease. And I understand this is a little bit of a controversial thing. In the medical field, they're kind of describing this as a disease, and some people go, I don't quite get that. I'm not worried about the debate. Just at the fundamental nature of what disease is to go, you know what? There's something broken inside. There is a dysfunction in the body. And it may well be with addiction that, there's a part of this story where some choices are made, but there is another reality of going, these drugs are so destructive. Their effect is so powerful that they actually change the chemical situation in the brain. There is a brokenness, there is a dysfunction that comes about after use, and you no longer have choices the way that you did maybe at one other time. It affects and changes you physically, chemically. And so in that sense is what they're going, there is a disease part of this. They are no longer the person they were. That is gone. Something has broken inside. And so really this is more than just kind of a normal disease at its fundamental nature. And what makes this so awful is it really is a disease of free will. We've got a lot of diseases that we wrestle against and what their impact is. But this is a type of thing that erodes you as a person. It washes away your soul. Something that we take so for granted in our own being of going, you know what? I can choose. I can decide. It's very hard for me to drive past McDonald's. I have an addiction to Big Macs, right? I'm trying to deal with it. And I'm trying to make better choices about that because I can. It's almost painful for me to use the word addiction to Big Macs. Multiply that by 1,000, 10,000. And that's what these folks are facing. Within themselves, they have lost control. And it doesn't matter how much they want it, they weep for it, they yearn for it, or even work for it. Their own body has set them on a self-destructive course. Now, it's not 100%. There's still choice at some levels, but it is a complicated and dangerous picture. Elliot had everything going right. In 2 weeks, he was gone. Paul gives a description of this. He's not talking about drug use. He's not talking about addiction, but he's talking about kind of this brokenness of humanity, all of us. But man, the parallel is powerful. Romans 7, he writes it this way. He says, I don't really understand myself. For I want to do what is right, but I don't do it. Instead, I do what I hate. But if I know that what I am doing is wrong, this shows that I agree that God's law is good. I want the good. So I'm not the one doing wrong. It's that sin living in me that does it. And I know that nothing good lives in me. That is in that sinful, broken part of me. I want to do what is right, but I can't. I want to do what is good, but I don't. I don't want to do what is wrong, but I do it anyways. Man, that's an addict. But if I do what I don't want to do, it's not really me. It's something broken in me. Paul's talking about all of our sin nature, right? This is why we can't go, hey, we're going to be perfect. I'll give you a week. Shoot, I'll give you an afternoon, right? We can't but mess up. How much more so for the addict? They are out of control. It's the pernicious lie of these drugs, and this is, I think, the spiritual side of this, that, yeah, there's a chemical reality, but there is a spiritual reality of a lie was fed to us, to our culture, and to our kids. And through these drugs, it gives you an amazing high that first time. And it will never give it to you like that ever again. Even as you up the ante, as you up the dosage, as you go to more hardcore drugs, you are chasing what you will never find again. It was a lie. And so you are compulsed. You are out of control. Your free will has been compromised. You are diseased in your mind. And that's what Paul says, what a miserable person I am. Who will free me from this life that is dominated by sin and death and self-destruction. And he's going to go, that's not the end of our story. The answer is Christ. Here is one that is more powerful. It's not just one family, though. We've got two families. And so I want to invite Rick to come up and share some of his story of his family.
Good morning.
Yeah, thanks, Rick. Tell us about your son, Dustin.
Dustin was a typical young kid, loved school, excelled in sports, straight A and B student, played Little League, Teener League, loved to hunt with his uncles. Fishing is still his passion, especially with his grandfather. Between his junior and senior year of high school, he entered into the military he wanted the aspirations to be a police officer, so he went to Fort Leonard Wood, military police, and then he completed that during the summer, and in his senior year, finished up his senior year of high school, attended Penn State, later on attended Du Bois Business School. Everything was going well for him.
Okay. How did his battle with addiction begin?
It's hard for us to put a finger on it, to pinpoint when it happened. Maybe we weren't paying attention. I know that the irony in this is I was counseling at the Mahaffey camp, Christian camp, as a youth counselor. I got a phone call. Dusty was in the emergency room. Heroin withdrawals, overdose, whatever you want to call it, and it just shocked us to our core as a family. That wow, we've got a problem.
Yeah. So what's his battle been like since then?
Of course, with anybody who has to deal with addiction, there's the legal ramifications. He's dealing that right now. It's been up and down. He's been on Suboxone, off and on. He's had some health issues dealing with the Suboxone and the side effects of that. He's trying his best to get off of that. He's had some trauma. When he lost his younger brother in a tragic way. Our youngest son is gone. That didn't help anything, but he wants to get better. He's working at it. Once he takes care of some of these legal issues, he's going to be coming home mid-September, it looks like, back into rehab, and hopefully we can give him all the support that he needs.
There you go. So, that's his battle. What's been the battle like for you and Robin?
As parents, God gives us all these emotions, and you go through all of these. First you're angry, and then you've got blame. Who do I blame? You got depression. You've got hopelessness, and then at some point you just say, I don't care. We just give up. I mean, we can't deal with this. But then you put your big girl and your big boy boots on, and you say, we're a family, and we're gonna deal with this.
Yeah. So I'm sure you have lots to say from your experience, but what would be a key message that you would have for the people out of the experience that you've had so far?
Keep your eyes open, pay attention, and it's just not, look at the demographics. It's just not the son, the daughter, or the kid, the family on the other side of the railroad tracks. It's all aspects, rich, poor, your standing in society, whether you're a loving family, a single parent, a single mom, it affects everyone. But what I want to stress is you need to be an advocate. Like Vicki said, you got to get a hold of your state legislators and say, we need more rehab facilities, and something more than just 28 days, because that's all they normally get. We need better counsel. We need not better counselors, we need more counselors, and they need the pay to go along with it so people can pick that field, because there's a tidal wave coming, a tsunami, and we're going to have to deal with it. So we need the counseling, we need the rehab, and we need to kick this right in the butt where it belongs.
All right. Thank you for sharing. So Dustin's still in the battle here. And that's part of us just raising awareness of going, we've got people here. These are two families that are directly impacted. I'm sure that we have more. And then you start going out from that ripple of going, you know somebody that's been affected by this. I have it in my extended family. How are we going to support them? How do we think about this? How do we approach this? Jesus said in John, he says, the thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. And that's what these drugs do. There is nothing good here. It gets its hook into them. And, 28 days isn't enough. It can take 2 years to get that out. But did you remember from Elliot's story? He had been clean for like 8 years and hit a rough patch. And those hooks just kind of came right back. The thief only wants to destroy. But that's not the whole story. Jesus says, I've come to give them that they may have life. There is hope. And part of this is the community, the faith community, and what our role is. And speaking Jesus into this situation over and over. So I want to finish with just 4 very quick snapshots of kind of what your expectations are of addiction. Well, addicts are only people that are bad and made bad choices, and they come from broken homes, and they got taught wrong, and they have parents that don't care and watched over them. That's absolutely right. Those people can become addicts. But so do people that come from non-broken homes, people that were smart, intelligent, capable, strong, from the right side of town. It's everybody. This stuff is so potent. You got to be weak to be an addict. Remember Brett Favre? He was the Iron Man of the NFL back in the 90s. Did 297 games straight. Got a shoulder injury, got pain meds, and one summer he had to go into rehab. Couldn't find a tougher player, and it took him down. Well, you just need to be successful. Addicts are losers. Philip Seymour Hoffman, one of the best aspiring, no, more than aspiring, he was an accomplished actor of our age. Cocaine took him at 46. He had everything. He had money, he had fame, doesn't matter. It's not just about having the right circumstance. This stuff is so deadly. Oh, but see, I'm going to protect my kids. They're a good student. Yeah, so was Dustin. They're in sports. They're involved in activities. Yeah, so were those 2 boys. I took them to church. Yep, so did they. I'll love them enough. I'll pray for them enough. Yep, people did that too. There is no surefire way. This stuff is so deadly. Well, you know what? Addicts, they just need to say no. They just need to make good choices. That's all. And you need to use some tough love on them. Well, there is tough love that's going to have to be used, but it's of a whole different type of order. It's not like the normal, you can't lay this situation alongside of normal behavioral issues where tough love really works. That can be destructive. There will have to be boundaries. They are incapable of saying no at some level. They can say yes, but it takes so much love and support and work. You got to have the medical side of it. You got to have the spiritual side of it. You got to have the relational side of it. It isn't simply just, we'll pray for him and that'll be enough. We're going to pray for him because we believe that God hears and he works. But it takes all of this. It's not an easy way out, and it's a years, maybe for the rest of their life, that they will fight this, so that those claws never come back. And ultimately, and what today is about, is we just need to break that idea of going, this is somebody else's problem. This would never happen to us. Did you hear it over and over again in these two stories? It can happen to anyone. And we have two sets of parents that were like, what? I never even imagined. Somebody let the genie out of the bottle in the 60s and 70s. And the devil has been destroying lives decades over. We need to be paying attention to this. We need to be the faith community. We need to support one another and figure this out. I don't have all the answers. I don't know. But we got to take it out of the shadows. I want to recommend a movie for you that really illustrates this well. This is not a Christian movie, and it is an R-rated movie. It's not over the top R-rated, but it has some language in it. But it's not for the kids. But it is a very well done movie about the relationship between a father and a son as he deals with his son and goes through this experience of him becoming an addict and what that means. So, great movie I would recommend to you. So we began the story with Jesus coming to the side of the lake where there was a man that no one was able to subdue. They'd given up. He can live among the dead. We'll just listen to the howling. That man ran to Jesus and said, what are you going to do with us? And Jesus, now this isn't a drug addiction situation. This is a demon possession. It's clear in Scripture. He cast those demons out. He was the one that could deal with that man, and he didn't need chains. He didn't need irons. He needed his own word, because his name is powerful enough. The story ends, it says, when the townspeople came back to Jesus, they saw this man that they could not deal with, who had been demon possessed. And he was sitting there, dressed, and in his right mind. We are the people of faith, and we believe in the power of God to restore and to heal. We don't want to be naive that this is easy. It's not. It's hard. But there is one who can speak the word that you are clean and be made right. As the band comes, we're going to just close our service here with a song and just an open time of prayer. So the altar's going to be open. We're going to have Alice will be over here. I'll be over there. If you need prayer or you need prayer for someone else, this is a time in our service that we're going to, where we start with is we speak the name of Jesus over our families, over ourselves, and say, God, stop this evil and restore in your name. So come and pray as we sing.